The following podcast contains explicit language.
It's going to be a heavy Bazelon episode.
Yeah, Baz it.
Let's all buckle our seatbelts and see if we make it through.
Hello, and welcome to the Slate Political Gabfest for May 31st. No, it's not. It's June something else. What is it? June 7th. 2018.
The drinking in the morning episode.
The I Beg My Pardon edition. I'm David Plotz of Atlas Obscura. We're weirdly giddy. I don't know why. I'm not even in a good mood.
We weren't, like 2 minutes ago, we were not this way.
That's the smiling Emily Bazelon in New Haven. And then there was John Dickerson in New York of CBS This Morning. Hello, John.
Hello, David. Hello, Emily.
On this week's Gabfest, President Trump's latest extraordinary claim that he can pardon himself and other legal shenanigans of the week. Then how big a deal is the masterpiece cake shop ruling from the Supreme Court? Then could former President Bill Clinton please shut up? Plus, we will have cocktail chatter. And before we get started, a reminder that we have a live show coming up in Philadelphia on July 18th on a Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. It's slate.com/live to get tickets. It's at the Keswick Theater in Glenside. We're hoping to have a really great guest, which I thought we could announce today, but we don't have that guest ready to announce, but hopefully next week. So, but I'm guarantee you there'll be a great guest. So come and join us in Philly on July 18th. We'd love to see you. Slate.com/live for tickets. President Trump, who loves nothing so much as the imperial powers that the presidency has, he asserted several emphatically this week. In an early 2018 letter to Robert Mueller, the president's lawyers had asserted that he could not obstruct justice because essentially he is justice, that since he supervises the Department of Justice, he has absolute unitary power to start and stop any investigation for any reason, and therefore he could not possibly obstruct any investigation. Later on Twitter, he asserted with supreme confidence that he has the right to pardon himself and that constitutional scholars agree with this. This occurred against the backdrop of other interesting Mueller developments. The Mueller asking Paul Manafort's bail to be, well, I wasn't exactly sure what he was asking.
It was house arrest was supposed to end.
House arrest to continue because Manafort is accused of tampering with witnesses against him, and also against the backdrop of the president pardoning Dinesh D'Souza and hinting at other pardons of celebrities convicted of crimes similar to those Mueller is investigating. So, Emily, let's start with the two astonishing claims about the power of the president that the president made. What is the consensus about how true those claims are? Does the president have those powers? Does the president have absolute power over all Department of Justice investigations and thus cannot obstruct them? And does he have the power to pardon himself?
The consensus is that we don't know the answer, that these are unsettled questions under American law in the formal sense the Supreme Court hasn't resolved them. I think we all thought that we knew the answers politically, that a president would not dare to even broach the topic of doing such things, that because it presents the president as being above the law, that no president would want to put himself in the political position of courting this question, at least since Watergate, and we didn't have to worry about it. But now, of course, it's front and center. And I think what we're seeing is Trump quite successfully controlling, or at least trying to control, the terms of the debate and making the question about what is legal and what is like clearly the law versus what his behavior obviously should be under any set of norms that we would want to live by. I mean, one of the more amazing developments in my mind was later in the week, Paul Ryan said that he didn't believe in these allegations that Trump's been brooding about, that the FBI spied on his campaign. And both he and McConnell have taken the position that obviously the president wouldn't pardon himself as this way of like pretending there isn't a real controversy. But anyway, what amazed me, I mean, so Ryan, I think, was showing a little spine. And then Matt Gaetz, a freshman Republican congressman, immediately went on Fox and excoriated Ryan and talked about removing him from the leadership. And so there's an argument going on within the Republican Party about whether the party stands for Trump, pure Trump, or for rule of law principles that are broader than that. And it's pretty astonishing that that would be the response to Ryan, I think.
I'm going to try and separate those two things because I think, and Emily, you can tell me if I'm crazy about this, but the debate about the unitary executive has at least some scholarly adherence. People may argue that they're right or wrong, but there is this theory, and Jay Sekulow has been offering that theory since the nanosecond, the whole Comey thing, or the whole Comey question, and the debate over what was said or wasn't said on the 14th of February in the Oval Office. The minute that came out, Sekulow was pointing to this notion of the unitary executive and the fact that the president can fire anybody he wants who is investigating something within the executive branch because he's the executive. So that's that. What's
the idea, not the fact. Right. The idea. That's the theory.
The idea has some. Again, you may not agree with it, but it has some group of adherents who have law degrees and read the Constitution that way. What I think is important about what Paul Ryan said about this. What the president was calling a spy, other people were calling an informant, but which seems to be a complete fabrication, is not only has Ryan seen some of the information, the president has not, but Ryan, as a part of the Gang of Eight, was given access. Trey Gowdy saw this information from the FBI, and both said that what the president asserted, again, the president hadn't looked at it, he was just basing it on, well, who knows what he was basing it on, but he was not basing it on the facts. Asserted something that is untrue, and so Ryan has said this is untrue. Trey Gowdy, the chairman of the Government and Oversight Committee, has said that not only is there no evidence of what the president was claiming, but that in his estimation, what the FBI was doing with respect to this specific informant was looking into whether the Russians had tried to meddle in the election, which Trey Gowdy said on CBS this morning, was in fact doing exactly what President Trump had supposedly said he wanted in one of his conversations with James Comey, which is that he wanted, if there was any evidence of anybody doing anything in his campaign with respect to the Russians, he wanted it investigated. McConnell looked at the same information and said he had full faith in Mueller's investigation. This is three leaders on the Republican side in Congress all saying that this assertion the president made is totally untrue.
Didn't Richard Burr throw in his lot with them too, the Republican head of the
I hadn't seen
committee?
That, but that seems consistent with his behavior. So on the one hand, you have a debatable point. On the other, you have what is been uncovered as a fiction brought into the consciousness not by anybody other than the president, now that's been knocked down by three or four big leaders. That's a big deal. So back to the question of the unitary executive, Emily, is it in the Starr case with Clinton, was it he couldn't assert this even if he wanted to because Starr was appointed by the judicial branch based on a legislative piece of legislation, right? So it was outside the executive. Is that why Clinton could never have claimed this?
Yes, it is true that at the time of the Starr appointment, we had the Special Counsel Act, which came out of Watergate, which created a three-judge panel that appointed special counsels. And so they were still kind of partly in the executive branch in the Justice Department, but they kind of had one foot out of it. And there are all these questions about whether that arrangement was constitutional. This arrangement was the one we devolved to after members of Congress, past administrations, got tired of special counsels and started seeing them as like these creatures run amok who were just causing a lot of distraction. So Mueller has both feet planted in the executive branch in the Justice Department. And yes, that is why this theory that of the unitary executive, by which I think you mean that the president sort of, because he can hire and fire everyone in the executive branch, he controls everything. That's where it comes from. The problem with Trump's theory of I can do whatever I want is that it assumes he can do whatever he wants no matter what his intention is. And so you're seeing a kind of dismissal of all the parts of the statutes that talk about corrupt intent. Like if you're trying to block an investigation of your own campaign, of your own family members, of yourself, that's not a reason we would want you to be exercising this hire and fire authority. And there is certainly a tension there. It's really hard for me to believe that the Supreme Court would come down on the side of, the Giuliani hypothetical. Trump can shoot James Comey and he has to be impeached by Congress before he can be indicted. Like that just it's so it was, I thought, usefully and clarifyingly extreme. There's just something wrong with that. We shouldn't want that to be the answer, that a political consequence of impeachment has to come before any kind of criminal consequence for an obvious crime.
Well, but doesn't this all go back to what I continue to believe is the fundamental crisis in American politics, which is that you have a Congress which has extraordinary powers to investigate and pursue and punish members of the executive branch who misbehave, including the president, and members of the judicial branch, because impeachment is available